Andy Revkin, former New York Times reporter, and friends, liberated carbon. This is Democracy Now!, democracynow.org, the War and Peace Report, as we continue my conversation with two remarkable women, Jane Goodall and Vandana Shiva. I interviewed them at the International Women's Earth and Climate Summit. Jane Goodall, renowned primatologist, best known for her groundbreaking work with chimpanzees and baboons. Vandana Shiva, an environmental leader, author of many books, including Earth Democracy, as well as Staying Alive. I asked Jane Goodall to talk about the role of women in her years of struggle to save the environment.
Well, I think, I come from studying chimpanzees, right? And when you study chimpanzees, there's a male role and a female role, and they're very different. The male is responsible for protecting the territory and the resources in the territory for his females and his young, and enlarging it if he can. It sounds familiar, it sounds human. The female is responsible for raising her young, for finding enough food to raise her young, in which she is helped by the male. And I think I can't help saying, as we start off this conference with the role of women, which is so very important, of a saying, and I first heard this when I was in Mexico, but I think the saying was from Ecuador, I'm not sure. But one of the indigenous people said, in our tribe, we have a saying that a tribe flies like the condor, and the tribe will only fly true when the wings of the condor are in balance, and one wing is male and one wing is female. The tribe will fly true when the wings are in balance. So as we move into this, and I wish I was here for the whole few days, but as we move into this, we have to remember we're in a world where men are in it as well as women. And men have traditionally been put in the same role as the male chimpanzees. They're there, they've been protecting the territory. In the old days, they were responsible totally for for looking after the family, for getting the money. They were the breadwinners, they were all these things. And today, women are moving into those traditionally male roles. And I think I wasn't saying it to you, Amy, earlier, but I've been fascinated by watching this change, particularly coming at it from the point of view of, learning about the male and the female chimpanzee, and thinking, as Louis Leakey thought, that 7 million years ago there was a common ancestor, a human-like, chimpanzee-like creature, which over 7 million years we developed into people and they developed into chimpanzees, but there was this common ancestor. And so watching as our women have moved into leadership roles, I noticed that initially, to get into those positions, the women were trying to be more male than the men. And there was a stridency and an anger in some of those early women leaders, which is understandable. But I think and I feel that that's changed, that women are moving into leadership positions and they are confident in their femininity. And women traditionally are nurturing. Women traditionally nurture their young. The 7 generations are important to women. And this is what I see. And I think what's gone wrong? What's gone wrong with us? We've lost that wisdom. That is the wisdom of making a decision today based on how will it affect our people 7 generations ahead. And we've lost that wisdom, and now we make decisions based on how will it help me now, how will it help the next shareholders meeting. So there's a disconnect between the head and the heart. And I'm hoping and praying that women can come together and heal that disconnect. Because if we don't operate with our amazing head, the brain is what makes us more different from the other animals than anything else. With the human heart, love and compassion, we'll never get there. And we do somehow need to create a world where we have 2 equal wings and find the roles for our boys as well as our girls. I just feel it's terribly important.
Vandana, how do you nurture climate action?
The first thing is to bring it down from the stratosphere. I think one reason the climate movement on the grassroots has taken longer to grow than movements around biodiversity conservation or water, etc., is because everyone got so overwhelmed with the parts per million. And everyone was looking at the graphs and how they climb and the hockey stick. And looking at the hockey stick is something that is out of control. There's nothing you can do. But every emission begins on the ground. And every mitigation and adaptation action is on the ground. That's why I wrote my book, Soil Not Oil. I was starting to feel worried that not only were we only dealing with the IPCC reports that had kind of become the only place you could act and go to the climate summits, but we were missing the biggest piece of where do greenhouse gas emissions come from. You might remember the Kyoto Protocol was supposed to reduce emissions by 5%, and by the time we went to Copenhagen, emissions had increased 16%, because the solution in Kyoto was allow the polluters to trade in emissions and buy credits from those who don't pollute. Not only did this make big money for the polluters. I know the Mittal family, which bought up all the steel plants, including the ones in Eastern Europe and France. He made $1 billion a year just to these emissions trading. But worse, because it all became such a racket, all kinds of really devastating activities started to be treated as clean development mechanisms. One example is the fact that this year, 16th, 17th of June, we had the most intensive rains and a glacial lake burst and flooding like I've never seen in my life. Took place, 20,000 people have died in my region, the region where the Chipko movement started. The damage was accelerated by hydro projects, which were all getting clean development mechanism money, in addition to all the benefits government gives. Agriculture, industrial globalized agriculture is 40% of the greenhouse gases. We can do something about it today. If you notice, the official agenda is biochar. Biochar is burning biomass without oxygen, basically how charcoal is made. That's not what the soil lives on. The soil lives on humus. But biochar is another place to make huge profit, whereas humus is just giving back to the earth what we've received from her. And I think the word humus has such power, because I think humanity comes from it, humility comes from it, humidity comes from it. Everything that gives life and creates our humanity comes from it. So even though it might look a bit strange, but I think creating organic farms and organic gardens is the single biggest climate solution. But it's also the single biggest food security solution. And given the economic crisis, both in this country, you watch Southern Europe, you see the riots in Greece, in Italy, in Spain, and I work with youth, unemployed youth in all of these places. One of the things I'm telling them all is go back to the land. The banks messed up your lives. The governments have given up on you with their austerity programs, but the earth will never abandon you. She's inviting you to be co-creators and co-producers so that we can solve all these multiple problems which are interconnected. And I think if there's one thing women can bring to this discussion, in addition to those beautiful words that Jane used of love and compassion, the capacity to have compassion, is the capacity to see connections. That's the disease that deeply patriarchal mindset has not been able to overcome, that they can't transcend fragmentation and separation and thinking in silos, and worse, thinking as if we are separate from the earth. And therefore, as masters and conquerors, there's just another experiment of control that you need the freedom to have. And I think we need to give a message saying, no, the earth was not made by you, therefore you can't fool around further. You've already messed up enough. Stop these geoengineering experiments. We had a discussion on Democracy Now! I remember once about this. We need to tell them this world is about life, not just about your profits and your bottom line. So don't reduce everything to a commodity. And don't financialize every function of the earth and all her gifts. So I think this is really the moment for another discussion, another thinking. And in all of this, the beautiful thing is the concrete solutions are the most radical ones. The abstract has had its day.
Vandana Shiva and Jane Goodall at the International Women's Earth and Climate Summit. Vandana Shiva is an environmental leader, feminist, thinker from India. She's the author of many books, including Making Peace with the Earth, Earth Democracy, Justice, Sustainability and Peace, and Staying Alive, Women, Ecology and Development. Jane Goodall is the renowned primatologist, best known for her groundbreaking work with chimpanzees. She has written many books, among them Harvest for Hope, a guide to mindful eating. To see the extended hour of that discussion with Jane Goodall and Vandana Shiva, you can go to our website at democracynow.org. It took place in Suffern, New York.